you can start recording, and we'll jump straight into it. So if you have got a new company or you're starting a new division in Sage CRE, the first question you really ever need to ask yourself is, do I want my reporting data to merge or consolidate with my other entities? And how you answer that question will quite often govern the method that you add in the new company or division. So for example, in our sample, I'm on the Sage server, so I've got lots of sample companies here. So if I just look at my existing company, we've got lots of different companies there, and there's nothing to stop you having multiple companies in your Sage CRE either. You'll probably find that you have your operational company, and then you potentially could have a couple of other data folders just for payroll backups and play data and things like that. So if you wanted to add a new company to your list that is completely separate to every other company that you've already got, you would actually start what we call a new data folder, and that's add a new one on this listing. And when you create a new separate data folder, basically from a reporting and data point of view, that data will never mix with any other company. That's the big thing to remember. So if you do start another company and then you get down the track and say, oh, well, I really needed that balance sheet to consolidate with something else, it's not going to happen. Okay, so to create a completely new company, you would go to your options and start a new company, right? And then you get lots of questions. So you just give it a name. I'm just going to call it Janelle's new company. Right, and that's the minimum you need to put in for that. You can put in the names and addresses later on. The default data, you know, your past name, so it's just defaulted to where all my other companies are, and then of course picked up the name that I entered in up the top. You can of course direct that to anything, but logically you would want all your data folders to live in the same place purely for server maintenance reasons and backup reasons. Your data folder description, you generally follow the same as your company name. So I'll just put that there. Now, your two options down the bottom, these are the important things. You can use your current setup, which basically means your configuration will be the same as the initial company that you were logged into. So for example, your job numbers would have the same amount of digits and segments, cost codes would have the same amount of digits and segments, vendors, customers, you know, just lots of things like that would all sort of have the same structure. So if it's sort of an offshoot of your existing company, you may very well want to keep the same structure. If it genuinely is a completely separate company, you could use the setup wizard. But if you start stepping up through the setup wizard, just be aware that you're going to be faced with a lot of questions that you have to answer, and you're basically configuring an entire new company from scratch. And you may want to talk to one of the consultants before you jump into that, because there is a fair bit of work in there. So in this example, I'm just going to use the current setup just so it's exactly the same as my original Thrive construction. And you always get an option, say, yes, I'm absolutely sure. and the system is now just creating that data folder. So as it thinks about it. Right, some other things to think about when you're creating a new company like this is you would still need to activate all your modules, because your new company may not use all the same modules as existing companies, for example, and that's perfectly okay. So you don't need to sort of activate every module. Only activate the ones you need from that will be used. Another thing to remember is you can copy your chart of accounts from an existing company into a new data folder, okay? And that's just something you do via general ledger setup, copy chart of accounts, okay? And that will just copy all your base accounts. In your new company, you would still need to go in. I'm just going to go back to my original Thrive company while we're talking, Thrive Civil. Where did I get to? So that will copy over the base chart of accounts into your new data folder. You would still need to manually go in and set up, say, at least one prefix A if you are having a segmented GL account, and that is, if your GL account is 2 digits hyphen then 4 digits. So that's a very handy tool to have there. So just general ledger, where was it? Set up, copy chart of accounts, and just follow, and it'll ask you to nominate, the new data folder location and things like that. Okay. So that's saying copy chart of accounts, and you can see at the top, it might be a bit small on the resolution, your destination folder. So that's where you'd pass it through to the data folder that you just created, which I think I called Janelle's, and I can't find it, but you could just...
Janelle, I think it ended up inside of your Thrive Civil folder.
Oh, okay, yeah. So you just find whatever folder you want it to go into, and there won't be a master GLM there. Do you want to create it? You say yes, and you just follow the bouncy ball and say okay.
Sorry. There were some selections there. I'm just going to point out those selections that you had.
Right.
There are
Let me go in there again.
Yeah, jump in there, because there are some choices about whether you're copying just the accounts or accounts and amounts. And the first option it pops onto is actually including the amounts as well, and you probably don't want to copy those.
There's my new company.
Perfect.
So we'll go there. Will it be created? Yes.
Yeah, so we probably
you don't...
No, you go.
So you don't want to copy the related amounts, because that will bring over account balances from your existing customer. You really just want to bring over the account records only, basically, which will be the base account and the description. And you can bring over journals and things like that. You certainly don't want to delete the records after copying. And then, of course, you would probably want to include custom fields. I'm not sure, not many people use the attachment, so that one's a bit irrelevant. So you could do this can you do this multiple times, Pam, if you wanted to bring over different things?
So what I would normally do is I'd be copying my journals, because you need to have journals in the new company. I'd be copying my base accounts, and copying the company, well, that's debatable. You probably just want to set up your own new company in the new data folder. So
Yeah, okay. So I'm going to cancel that. The reason why we're showing you how to copy the chart of accounts rather than go in and copy the entire GLM master file from an existing company and popping that into your new company is because if you copy the entire GLM master file, you're going to bring over all the accounts, yes, but you're also going to bring over all their balances, all the balances in the monthly activity, all the debit activity, and just lots and lots of junk, for lack of a better word, that doesn't relate to your new company. And the same goes for every module. So if you're going to copy your APM master file and think that you're just going to get a vendor list, you're not. You're going to get a vendor list with all the vendor balances and the balance paid and the last check number and the last payment amount and lots of things that aren't related to your new company. So just be careful of that one. There are ways that we can bring in just the vendors. If you just want your vendor ID and vendor number, vendor description with address and phone numbers, we can bring that in using the ODBC links and Microsoft Access without bringing all the other junk that's irrelevant. Okay. So once you create your new data folder like that, a couple of other things to think about is your financial statements in your financial statement designer module. So, and of course your custom reports. So any custom reports that you have on your report list will automatically be available to every data folder. But if the custom report has been programmed to include something specific in your live data folder, that report may not necessarily work with the new company prefix for example. The only way to find that out is really to test the report. And sometimes it might only just be a quick tweak up to get it to work on the new data folder. In Financial Statement Designer, you just need to go to Tools and set up a new prefix group. So you can see all these prefix groups 10 and 20 apply to the original data folder. So you may just need to set a new prefix group, say for company 50, that you created in the new data folder. Okay. But all your existing report, if you've got customized financial statements, they can be made available in the new data folder as well. The other thing to be aware of is for new data folders, you can use your network or your Sage security to restrict or allow users into that new data folder or not. Because one of the most common reasons that clients have a separate data folder is quite often payroll. And I might get Pam to talk about that because she's our payroll guru. So for example, if you've got a high level payroll, you know, it might be a payroll for the owners or directors that you absolutely never want anyone to see, quite often the solution to that is creating a new data folder that runs the payroll module only. Pam, your thoughts on that one?
Yeah, so that's probably the most common time I see a separate data folder is when you have you know, the high-level employees who their payroll may be processed by someone more senior, and they don't want the payroll staff, you know, the regular payroll staff from seeing those more senior people. So when you log into the company, you know, only when you first log into Sage and you get prompted with your company list, only the people who have access to that you know, admin payroll can see that list on their company list. The regular payroll employees who process you know, the bulk of the staff, their payroll would be in the main data folder. And so what we're able to do is actually point that new admin payroll company, point it to the main data folder for its general ledger and cash management transactions that post through and job costs that post through. So
yeah, and
again, that's getting a little bit tricky to do that just with pointing it to the main folder for the file locations, and you might just want to ask for a little bit of help with getting that set up.
And that's a really interesting point, Pam, how you can have a secondary data folder. For example, you could have Janelle's test company running a payroll module only, but still having that post through to Thrive Civil Proprietary Limited's general ledger. And of course, that only will post for security reasons. You may only want to post through that in a highly summarised area, at a highly summarised level, because that obviously might defeat the purpose of having the separate data folder. But definitely it's all possible. Okay, so hopefully that explains a separate data folder. The other way to set up new companies or divisions is just in your existing general ledger into set up prefix and bases. And in our, and this will come back to what you have as your existing structure. So in our sample data here, we've got a company in our company setup. And if I just hit my list button, I can see there's already a few, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 companies there. So to set up another company, it's really just a matter of putting in the number. Sorry, just lost my screen for a few minutes there. Just put whatever new number you want it to be. And it depends on where your fiscal level is, but generally at company level, you can, you know, this sample data, the fiscal level is at company. So your first period ending will just be the month of that you're going live. And of course, your fiscal ending for us in Australia is usually June 30. And once you enter those dates, your calendar just becomes automatic. So you shouldn't have to change anything there. Okay, and that's enough to set up a new company.
Janelle, I've just got a quick question for you there. I can see you've got a 2-digit company. What are your thoughts on only typing a single digit for your new company that you're setting up? What sort of impacts can that have on your reports and things?
Yeah, always keep, like I'm a fan, if you've got 2 digits, always keep everything as 2 digits. If that's what you've been running on, unfortunately Sage won't let you sort of then go to 3 digits, but I certainly wouldn't ever then just set up a new company as, sorry, my numbers don't work, but I wouldn't set up a new company as number 1, because I will set this up so you can see. 280222. So if we look at our company list now, we've got a 1-digit company and everything else is 2 digits. I definitely wouldn't do that, because that potentially can bugger up any custom reports you've got. And in some instances, even some standard reports. Because as soon as...
I agree. It does complicate things, because often our custom reports have a formula where we're telling it to look at the left 2 characters. And so bringing in digit company can really wreck things.
Yeah, and quite often, you know, a lot of your reports will try and segment out GL accounts, and they'll just simply say the right 2 characters of the GL string. And all of a sudden, when you go to 1 character like I did there, just gets nasty. So keep your characters the same. Okay, so that's if you're just adding it into your existing data folder, it really is as simple as that. Just add it to your prefix-based list, and then, of course, you can generate accounts. Now, generate accounts is just a way of making live the GL accounts that you're going to use. And you can just go through the list and select the ones that you're going to use, think you're going to use for that company, for the new company. And then, of course, select your new division prefix. Okay. And then just start generating, and now they're live. I'll just go back in there. What I would recommend never doing is selecting every base account to generate against your new prefix, because, you know, include all, I would not do that, because that will just generate a whole mountain of accounts that you potentially will never use. And then when you go to screen inquiries, you've just got a whole mountain of accounts that you've got to troll through to find the ones you want.
I've got to strongly agree with Janelle there about not selecting all, because, for example, I have a customer in mind that they've got, you know, a lot of entities, maybe 60, 70 companies. They've got a very large chart of accounts, and they have generated the chart for the entire set of base accounts for every company. Their full, complete account list is now more than 65,000 rows, and they only use a fraction of those. And so that really slows things down by having a whole heap of
it slows down your data processing, slows down your inquiry, and slows down your reports. So definitely resist generating them all. Okay, so like a separate data folder, the other things you need to think about are your custom reports. If you've got any custom reports that are dependent on specific prefixes, they may just need a little bit of tweaking to include any new ones that you've created. And then, of course, with your financial statements as well, as we mentioned earlier, you will need to go in here into your FS module and just make sure that you've got a prefix group for the new division that you created. So I created a company called 70 Janelle's company, and we can say a single statement. Might do a custom group for this one, and then I can just say company for that one is now going to be number 70. And it really is that simple. Of course, if you've got any consolidated prefixes as well, you just need to come in and make sure you include your new ones into that list as well to consolidate them up. And of course, if you create your new entity in the general ledger, as we have with this one, the only way you can restrict users getting into that specific company, say company 7, for example, is if you've got record level security turned on. And of course, record level security has pros and cons to it. The pro being that you can, you know, restrict specific companies or divisions to specific users. The downside is it can slow down the entire operation of the software, just obviously by nature of what it's doing. That, you know, all the pros and cons are probably a conversation for another day, so we won't get into that too much today. So we're coming on half an hour now, so I'll just wind it up and recap that we did two different methods today, okay? We did a complete new data folder, which would sit on your listing there as a completely separate company. And if it's a completely separate company, never shall that data or reports merge with any of the others. That can be very handy when you need high-level security stuff. And in the example of a payroll, for example, if you did want that higher level payroll as a separate data folder, there are ways we can make it post through to the general ledger of existing companies. Okay, and then of course the other way to create a new company is within an existing company, in which case you just set up a new prefix, and that is all dependent on whatever prefix structure you've already got in your existing Sage system. So we're only a small group today, so we can probably unmute everyone if you want to handle any questions. Or if you're a bit shy, you can type it into the chat box. We'll give everyone a few minutes to think if they've got any questions. Pam, did we cover everything? Did anything jump out to you that we needed to talk about?
No, I think we basically covered it. I guess I mean, there is the option that if you do have, say, a single-digit company prefix or even a two-digit company prefix and you run out of numbers because you've used them all up, contact Drive, because we can make inquiries with the US. We can make arrangements to have your data sent off to the US, and they can expand out the number of digits being used. It's not something we can do ourselves. It's something that has to go to the US to be done. So it is a large project, but sometimes it gets to the point that it is essential because you've run out of numbers. So yeah, anything is possible really. It just depends on how complicated it is. So have a chat with us. If there's anything you need to do that you're not sure, just have a chat and we'll point you.
Yeah, just send in a help desk ticket if there's anything you're not sure about there. You know the old saying, anything's possible. It's just whether it's viable to throw the time and money at it. Jacinda is one of our other fellow consultants. That's probably the first time you've had an in-depth on the different ways of setting up new companies.
I was only familiar with setting it up within General Ledger, so that it was in the same database. I didn't realise you could do the other way. That was very helpful.
With
Thank you.
Different data folders. Yeah.
I knew that different data folders could exist. However, I didn't know the ins and outs of actually setting it up. So it's fantastic. Thank you.
Mm. And the other thing that we have with clients that have different data folders, you can copy your current data folder into a new file and then rename it as a play area or a sandbox. So for example, if you've got a lot of new staff starting all at once and you want them to test how transactions flow through, certainly don't trust them with your live data folder. Create a new data folder as a sandbox, because then they can't harm anything. And then, in a few months or a few weeks, whatever, you can either then delete that sandbox or just archive it away. We have a lot of clients do that.
Yeah, I've had some customers I've had some customers that have given their new staff access to the sandbox only, just for the first week or so until they get familiar with how to use the software, and then they change the security to then give them what they're doing.
Yeah, I guess that's a good idea, isn't it, Pam? Because, during the first week, there's always a bit of downtime with new employees where you haven't quite, go away and amuse yourself for a few hours until I get this meeting out of the way or whatever, and you just want them, to go in and test how some transactions flow through.
Right, well, I haven't had any questions come through from anybody else. So last opportunity, if you have any questions, please unmute yourself and ask the question, or if you don't want to talk, you're welcome to send me through a question in the chat.
Or silent, Pam. I must have to just leave everyone with a bad joke like I normally do. Did you hear about the fire at the circus?
No.
It was intense. Get it? It was
Thank you,
intense.
Janelle, for the smile.
Oh, it's sad, isn't it?
Thanks, Janice. I can see your comment. All good. Janice doesn't have a microphone, but thanks for attending.
Thanks, everyone. Bye now.
All right.
Thank you, Janelle. Thank you, Pam.